dancers, welcome back to my channel. I'm Claudia Dean and today I am bringing you a Q&A. I'm so excited. You've all asked amazing questions on my Instagram photo that I uploaded, so thank you so much, and I wish I could answer them all, but there is so many. Actually, I just wanted to say too that for a lot of the questions you all ask, I've done a lot of tutorials on them on my YouTube channel already, so just make sure you do check out all the videos that I have posted. I'm so excited to be doing a Q&A. I actually love filming Q&As and I love the whole process of it, you know, getting your questions and hearing what you all have to say. However, I feel like Q&As on YouTube, for some reason, they're almost like the least watched videos. I'm not sure why, but they're always so fun to film. So I want to do more Q&As, but you all let me know as well what you want to see as always. Don't forget to subscribe. And I've hit 50,000 subscribers. Crazy, I cannot believe it. Oh my God, 50,000 of you watch my videos. It's amazing. Thank you all for so much support. I love you. And okay, now I think we should get into the Q&A. So let's start with the first question. Dancing Duos 01. And they have asked, what was your favorite part of being with the Royal Ballet and what was your least? Such an awesome question, because obviously being with the Royal Ballet and the Royal Ballet School was such a big part of my life. I was with them for 6 years in total. So now I know with a career in dance, the highlights and obviously the times when maybe it's not such a highlight, you have to be able to get through the times that aren't so great too, and you've got to have your own way of staying motivated during those times. So my favorite part would definitely have been being on stage every night, for sure. That's so amazing. Being in front of an audience, I guess, and being able to play a character or just trying to take the audience away from their usual lives and knowing that when they're sitting and watching a show, it's sort of taking them out of reality. I used to love that feeling. So I loved entertaining people, which is probably my highlight for sure. The least favorite part for me would be casting. That was something that actually took me a long time to get used to, and I think it shocks a lot of dancers. When you join a company, all of a sudden you realize that you're really just a small fish in a really big pond, and you've really got to wait your turn. And I guess because I'd come from the Royal Ballet School and I actually did Dux my year that particular year, I think it was back in 2010, and I was doing lots of main roles at the school and I was being given this and given that, and I was very used to being really up the top. Then all of a sudden when you join the company, you realize that very quickly that you're down the bottom. And I have to say, like, casting, and that's what I mean by that, is obviously if you aren't cast to do a role, or if you're not cast to be in a certain ballet, obviously that means that you're not dancing for that particular piece. So, you know, when you look at casting, and you're actually not in control of it either. So it's not something that you can control. It's your director obviously casting you for certain ballets. So if your director doesn't cast you, you don't dance, and therefore it can obviously make an unhappy dancer. I was always very lucky. I feel the directors, Monica Mason and Kevin O'Hare at the time, they were fabulous with me. They were always casting me in ballets, and I was always covering and understudying very big roles, so I was very fortunate enough for that. But it did take a while for that to happen. It's amazing. As soon as you do one role, or you know, a solo or something particular that sort of highlights you in the company, then it like snowballs. So obviously then you're able to do the next role and you'll get cast to do another one. It kind of continues on, but you have to prove yourself initially, and that can take time. Actually, if you want to hear, when the way that I proved myself was, at the time we were learning a balanchine piece called Jules, and I was cast to understudy rubies. So there's about 12 girls, I think 12 from the top of my head, and obviously those 12 girls were girls that had been in the company for years, like some of them 6, 7, 8 to 10 years, you know, they've really earned their spot to be there. And it was even just an honor to be able to be in that room just covering the rubies, that section of the dance. And we were in rehearsal, One of the girls that I was covering, she literally sprained her ankle on the spot, and the director happened to be at the front of the room that day, and he was watching the rehearsal, and I had to step in, honestly, in a matter of 3 seconds. Thank gosh, I always knew what I was doing, and I stepped in, I nailed it, thank gosh. I was so scared, but I nailed it, and then I was cast for all the shows, and that's sort of how it started to snowball. The next question is from Steve Joy 98, and they've asked, do you have any advice on Allegro? Allegro is my weakest section, and I'm not sure how to make it stronger or make it look like I'm actually getting off the floor. Very good question, Steve, and I actually have released a Petty Allegro tips tutorial on this. However, I'm always experimenting with new techniques. So the latest technique I've been using for Petty Allegro and to getting off the floor much easier is actually, if you can, do a rise in first position, and you'll feel that your calf muscles, they really engage. And if you find you do a rise and you can't feel your calves, try and do it again and really engage them. Okay, when you've got that feeling, go back down into a first position, do a plie, then try and do a sauté and engage your calves just as much as you just did on that rise. And you'll find that you'll get off the floor so much easier just because you're thinking of engaging the calf muscles. So that's a little tip for you that you can try. Hopefully that helps. Next question. Sizfra. Huh. That's cute. Why did you become a dance teacher? Good question. I'm sure a lot of you already sort of know the reason why I am coaching, but if you don't, as you know, obviously from what I've just said about the Royal Ballet, I decided after 6 years that having a career in classical ballet wasn't for me anymore. I felt like it wasn't suited for my personality and what I really wanted in life. And I trained so hard throughout my early childhood years from, you know, 4 right through to when I left the company, which was what, 21, 22. So I'd worked really hard in those years, and I felt as though, you know, my personality had changed, my ambitions had changed, and that's okay. You know, you're not always going to stick to the same road in life, and I felt like it wasn't for me anymore. I do definitely want to create a video on why I chose to leave the Royal Ballet, because I'm sure a lot of people think, wait, why would you leave the Royal Ballet? It's the best company in the world. So I definitely will create it at some point. It's not an easy video to create because there's obviously a lot of things I want to say, and I want to be really honest with you all. So I will get to doing it, don't worry, and I'm sure that will lead into why I'm coaching. But obviously coaching, I actually stumbled across it, and I only coach private lessons purely because that's what I'm passionate about. I could easily start up a dance school, but for me, coaching private lessons is what I believe in and is what takes dancers to the next level. Really get across the tips and all the detail that I wanted to share with that one dancer. I felt like that really came across in private lessons. So that's why I decided to start a business based on private lessons. Now, oh, I like this one. It's from Hannah Power, and she's asked, when you pirouette, do you snatch your foot underneath or do you do a strong rise? Really good question, Hannah. I'm going to start off by saying either or are correct. You really have to do what works for you. I coach some dancers with a rise, and some of them I coach with a releve. It honestly depends on the strength of your foot and also how quickly you can get your hips over the top of your supporting leg. So for some dancers, if you're a little bit slower at doing that, then you'll probably find that perhaps a rise might not be for you. But if you are quite quick at it, then a rise might work really well. In my opinion, I feel like on flat, a rise works better, and on point, I feel like a releve works better. Trial both and see what you think. The next question is from Davies Elena, and she has asked me, do you recommend using a foot stretcher? I feel like this is the question of the year. Lots of people ask me this, and you know what? No, I don't really believe in foot stretchers. I feel like they do more damage than good. I think personally, you're better off manually stretching your feet. That's what I did to create good feet, and that's what I really believe in, because I feel like you've got more control when you stretch your feet yourself. Definitely watch my tips for feet and legs video. It's either part 1 or 2. Make sure you watch those 2, because I really explain how to do it correct, how long you should hold it for, and where you should definitely feel the stretch. The next question is from Maddie Campbell, and she's asked me, what are 3 words to describe your job every day? Rewarding, number 1. Number 2 is hard work, and number 3 is inspiring. So those 3 definitely, I feel, sum up what I do. Hard work's really important because sometimes I don't know if people realize, but I'm literally in the studio from 7 a.m. through to 7 p.m. every single day from Monday to Friday, and then I'm at the studio as well from 8 till 4 on a Saturday. I'm literally doing one-on-one lessons. It can be up to 11 to 12 hours per day. So I've got, you know, about 350 students that I have to fit in over a monthly rotator schedule, and they're from everywhere around the world. I wouldn't want it any other way. The next question is from Gemma GG 5678. What was a typical day like in the Royal Ballet? Awesome question, because I think it's really important that you know what a day is like in a ballet company. Generally the day, it starts at 10:30 a.m. and that's with just a warm-up class, and that will last up until 11:45 normally, or 12 p.m. depending on the day. And then from 12 till 5:30 you could have a whole 5.5 hours of rehearsal after rehearsal after rehearsal, like that, boom, 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 boom. Or you could have 12 till 5:30 free, or you might have 12 till 2 as rehearsals, then you might have a break until 5:30. Just depends on what ballets you're in. So obviously everyone's got very different schedules depending on how busy they are. Most nights you do have a show, so you do find that you are finishing at 5:30 a lot. So it really does change all the time, and it just depends on personally what ballets you are in. And rehearsals only last for about an hour and a half. Usually for big quarter ballet work, they're about 2 hours, but for solo, private lessons or private coaching, then sometimes they'll only be half an hour. So it does vary. And let's just say if you do have a show at 7:30, the show normally finishes, if you're in the full ballet, it'll finish at 10:30, and then you start all over again at 10:30 the next day. So it sort of goes like that, and you can sort of get into a really good routine when you're in a ballet company, because you do sort of know what's coming up and how busy you're going to be depending on the ballets that are scheduled for that season. So yeah, that's sort of the typical day at the Royal Ballet, and every company will be so different. And I personally loved the way the Royal Ballet scheduled all of our rehearsals and performances. I felt like it really worked, and we were always given enough breaks, and they really looked after us at the same time. So the next question is from Chris.cyn, and they've asked me, how do you find your passion for ballet again, especially after doing it for a long time when it becomes very repetitive, robotic, and increasingly difficult? Great question, because I really feel like this comes down to the environment. So if you find you're feeling like this, I feel like it's time for you to either move on to a different environment or find yourself a coach or a mentor that can make you feel inspired. Because at the end of the day, ballet shouldn't be repetitive and robotic. And I know that in my career, when I had teachers like Prue Bowen, who's my old ballet teacher, and coaches from the Royal Ballet who made me feel really inspired, that was when I always loved ballet the most, because those teachers could take me to my limit and they motivated and inspired me all the time. So if you're feeling like that, then try and make a list after you finish ballet class, what you loved about it and what you didn't love about it. And if you really reassess and look at that list, I think you'll find your answer. Having and being in a positive environment when you're training is crucial. It is so important. It actually, I feel, it can really make or break a dancer. Always just make sure that number one, you're respected and you're valued wherever you are, because if you have that mutually with your teacher or director, you'll find that ballet won't seem so repetitive and robotic, because you'll therefore be very inspired working with that person. So the next question is from Brianna Dancer 1, and she's asked me, how do you maintain a healthy dancer's diet whilst having a busy schedule? Really good question, Brianna, and this really comes down to planning, because I really feel if you plan and if you know what you're going to fuel your body with that day or even that week, it becomes a whole lot easier. And obviously a lot of you in that question and answer, you did ask me about diet advice and what you should be eating, but just remember, for a dancer, I feel as though calling it a diet wouldn't really be the right word. I believe it's a lifestyle change, which is just eating healthy and eating correctly, because if you're putting food in your body that makes you feel fueled and it gives you lots of energy, then you'll find it much easier. But it really does all come down to planning, because even for me, with my busy schedule, it's so routine that I know that every morning I'm going to wake up and I have my protein smoothie with bananas, raspberries, oats, water, almond milk, and obviously with the protein powder, and that's something I know I'm going to have for breakfast every single day. And then for lunch, it's either a sandwich that I've planned and made the night before, or it could be broccolini from the restaurant downstairs, or sushi. And then for dinner, I always know I'm going to have, you know, either chicken and vegetables, steak and vegetables, or fish and vegetables. And me and my partner, we both plan that, and we know what we're going to be eating for the week. So I really feel it comes down to planning, and don't think of it as a diet. It really needs to be sustainable, and you have to make sure that it's a way of life. It's what you choose to fuel your body with. So remember it like that. The next question is from Eva, and she's asked me how to get a perfect balance. Now, really good question, Eva, and a lot of you have asked me this before. Balance is practice. It really comes down to understanding and being aware of your center line, but the fastest way to make that happen, I feel, is to always know where your hips are. So if you were to stand into a retiro position with your right leg up, most dancers would focus on having their left hip over their supporting leg. Yes, that's important, but we always forget about what the right hip is doing. And the right hip there, that has to be over the supporting side, otherwise balancing becomes very difficult. So always remember that the hip of the working leg has to be over your supporting leg just as much as the supporting hip. So remember that two hips are over one side. That is probably my best tip for balancing, because when you're aware of that, there's obviously a few other little things that we could adjust when you are in that correct position with your hips, but at the same time, that's a really good start. So if you can, focus on that to begin with, and make sure you just practice it non-stop. Like when you're brushing your teeth, you could be practicing in pedi retiro. So just remember that for balancing. Now dancers, that's all the questions for today. Thank you for all those amazing questions, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video.